Ryder, right after the red carpet, you headed into the Dolby Theater to go watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So, with no spoilers at all, I don't want to know any of the
Mhm.
cameos. I don't want to know the plot of the movie or anything. Tell me about how the actual movie was.
Off the bat, as soon as the movie wrapped, I ran to my mother and I told her this, and this is very true to this morning. I said, you know what? I had a good time with this film and I enjoyed it and it made sense to me. But I have a very strong feeling Marvel fans are either just not gonna, it's not, this film won't sit right with them,
Whoa.
or they won't like it. And that's gonna really disappoint me because Sam Raimi's direction and kind of the direction, the choices that they made in this film were kind of controversial, not controversial, but they were definitely a choice. There was a choice,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of people aren't going to agree with them, and the story won't make sense to them. And as the reviews started coming out this morning, that was raining true, and I was like, it's sad, but that's the world we live in with
Yeah.
this.
It's interesting because I've read some stuff. Obviously, okay,
Mhm.
just to clear it up, Ryder's the only one that has seen it. I have not seen it yet. I see it Thursday. So I don't want to know any spoilers just as much as you guys don't want to hear any
Yeah.
spoilers. So um here's what I want to know. Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi
Mhm.
directed this movie, and there's a touch that Sam Raimi has on movies where you distinctly feel and know that it is him, that it is like
Mhm.
him doing it. Is that feeling, is that like, I don't know, touch here in the movie?
Happily say 100% throughout the
Thank God.
entire film, you're like, this is Sam Raimi, this is Sam Raimi, and it doesn't like fade away all the way to the very end. You're like, there's another Sam Raimi shot, there's another
Good.
Dutch
Okay.
angle, there's another fade, and it's like, this is like camp. I'm like, 2000s camp. I'm
Oh,
like, this feels weird, but I'm like, thank you for this. You know what I mean?
good.
Like, it's so different from Marvel. I mean, it's not different. I mean, it's somewhat different from Marvel, right?
Yeah.
But off the bat, right, production design, the way the cinematography is, I'm like, this is Spider-Man, the
Oh,
Green
good.
Goblin's home. I'm like, this is like, I'm a kid again, I was like,
Yeah.
this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. And yeah, I mean, every angle, I mean, every single scene when there was tension or there was a moment, Sam Raimi took advantage of it with the cinematography
Good.
and made it a point to go boom, close up or transition or dolly shot or
Yeah.
this or that. Like it was always something that where he was like, let's try this. And it
Yeah.
it worked every time it had something
Good.
with it. So I'm like, Sam Raimi throughout the whole film, he got to shine. And that was only matched with Danny Elfman's score. Danny
Oh,
Elfman
God.
had
Yeah.
there was one scene toward the end, kind of third act, where it was like a big kind of orchestral
Yeah.
composition, but it was like clashing and something unique. And I feel like, oh, I think this was what they talked about on Twitter, that him and Danny Elfman worked on it to the very last second
Oh, I
because they
love it.
wanted it to be perfect. And it's one of the most unique scenes I've seen in Marvel. I'd say
Cool. Okay.
it's like a comic book
I'm
come to life. It's that silly.
I'm hearing a lot of things like on Twitter, like, okay, the people who love the MCU are like gonna be split on this movie, that kind of thing. Now, I don't care about like I don't care about like what other people think about it
Mhm,
as much
mhm.
as like, is it a good movie? Let's not put like, let's put the fact that this is like the 20 something movie in the, or maybe 30
Yeah.
something
Mhm.
movie in the MCU, that kind of stuff. Is it like a good movie just to watch on its own, or is it like, okay, this is great when you watch this and this and this, or like
Mhm.
like that's, I want it to stand on its own. How is it? How does it do that?
Yeah, I think that's the great thing. I think watching this on its own, it would be great. Doctor Strange, and then you have like maybe No Way Home, and then this one. Again, it's expectations, right? I went into this kind of thinking, okay, it's Loki, No Way Home, WandaVision, and then this is the epic event, like the ending to the conclusion of the
Mm,
story. It's like that is not what this is. Like this is another point. This is another chapter in the
yeah,
MCU, and then it's gonna keep going, and then it just keeps going. Like Thor, Guardians, and maybe even another Doctor Strange. Like
sure.
it's like not an ending. It's not like a conclusion, and it's not an event film. People keep saying that. It's like this is like there's a linear story,
Yeah.
and it starts, it ends, and it almost feels like nothing changes. Like more you gain
Whoa,
more
that's
knowledge,
big. That's
but
big. That's a
but
big point.
but yeah, it feels like nothing is like, oh, there's ramifications. It's like, no, like they implemented a tool, let's say, right? They implemented something, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna see that for the rest of the MCU. And it's like, this is
Oh,
not over. This is not over. You're just
okay.
gonna continue. Like, it's just great. Like, but there are some like character stuff, like that
Yeah.
the characters are different. The characters are different. They went through an arc,
Yeah.
and it's definitely like almost like, oh, there's more for them,
Sure.
but story wise, it's like, yeah, it's a very like contained, like, yeah, it's like,
Okay,
there we go,
so
start to end,
what you're
and then
saying
it
is it's
continues.
contained to the movie. It doesn't have huge
It's a movie.
ramifications on the MCU as a whole. Potentially,
No,
maybe not,
potentially,
maybe.
yeah, potentially, maybe not, yeah.
Okay, but the characters are where it shines,
The character's where it shines. Yeah, it's a
which is
character
great.
story.
I like that.
Yeah, which usually Marvel it's flipped where it's like, oh no, this planet's destroyed, so that means the Avengers have to team up. Like, no, like
Yeah,
it's about the characters, about Wanda, it's about Doctor Strange. Like for watching before, it's like No Way Home, you don't need it. Doctor Strange, you don't need it. Endgame, maybe a little bit. This is you need WandaVision and you need this movie. That's the two package deal right here.
wow.
That's what I'd
Okay,
say. Yeah. Yeah,
interesting.
it's very again, I went in and I'm like an hour through. I'm like, this is like not what this is a whole different story. I was like, oh,
Wow.
I didn't think it
Okay,
was gonna be this. Yeah. And again, like kind of how they did with Avengers Infinity War. In the comic, Infinity War is a war. Infinity War, the movie, is not really a war,
yeah,
but
right.
I mean, Marvel would disagree because they actually quoted that in the movie, which is
Okay,
kind of a
sure,
little
sure.
spoiler. But Multiverse of Madness, I wouldn't say people said it earned its title, Multiverse of Madness. I would disagree. I don't really think it was
Whoa.
madness or much multiverse, but I mean that's just
Wow.
me.
Okay, all
Hey,
right.
if that's I mean I just kind of spoiling, but I mean, listen, there is multiverse and there is madness though. There is that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying there
So
isn't.
this
I'm
should have
just
been called
saying
like Doctor Strange 2. Uh
multiverse traversal. You know what I mean? Like multiversal
Traversal.
traversal. Dude,
That's
that
a
would have
great
been
title.
perfect.
That's a great title.
Multiversal traversal. Because it's like,
Okay.
yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, we've seen in the trailers more they do that, but it wasn't no like, I don't know, like not that I was expecting like Toby or Andrew, but I feel like people are expecting this is gonna happen and they're gonna go to this. The
Don't
comic.
go too far. Don't
Yeah.
go too far here,
Right.
Ryder. I don't want to know. I don't
No,
want to
you're
know
right. You're
who's
right.
not
You're
in
right.
it.
You're
I
right.
don't
You're
want
right.
to
You're
know
right.
who's
You're
in
right.
it. All right. I'm gonna stop you
Again,
there.
they do traverse the multiverse.
Good. Well, guys, if you want to hear our full spoiler thoughts on the movie, I'm sure you can wait for a later date because I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a bit here at Strictly Casual. Stay
Mhm.
tuned this week. Or next week, we have a Marvel Theory video being posted, as well as Moon Knight is finishing up this week. So a
Mhm.
lot of Marvel stuff on the channel.
Mhm.
Also, if you're listening to this video and want to check out the whole podcast, Ryder talked about his entire red carpet experience, meeting actors such as Benedict Cumberbatch, meeting Sam Raimi,
Sam Raimi.
Nolan North, and a bunch of other people. And so you're definitely going to want to check out the audio podcast. It's free everywhere on audio platforms and
Mhm.
linked right below this video. Thank you guys for watching. Please check out the full podcast. Appreciate you guys.